In this lecture, we'll be continuing with digital spaces and cyber activism. Now, last we discussed how cyber culture works, and especially in the Tamil Nadu, where we witness what is called cinematic populism. The followers from the arena of art is followed into the arena of politics, and it largely becomes a vote bank. So, talking about these cyberspaces and activism, or digital spaces and activism, we see that there is something called self work and colloquialism which is happening in these spaces. Now, what is this self work? The people in these spaces, as they put themselves to work, we see that there is dynamic assemblies and coordinations are shaped increasingly by self work of ordinary publics. So they do not follow the trajectory of some legendary people, but they themselves put themselves to work, and these are the ordinary peoples or publics. These political controls, including paid trolls and organized forms of digital propaganda, as government and political parties have made heavy investments in digital infrastructures in recent years. So, when these people, ordinary people, are putting themselves to ordinary people are putting themselves to self work, we see that uh, they are putting themselves into kinds of self work. One could be the selfless work that people often talk about in what we were talking about, citizens who motivate other citizens to carry on these drives, cleanliness drives, and keep the momentum. And then we have something called these paid trolls and organized forms of digital propaganda, where these people, without knowing in ways, are become part and parcel of this political control and paid trolls, getting money because the parties have invested heavily on these digital infrastructures. This self work is inseparable from the structures of political support and amplification. And we also see the scale shifting, coordination, horizontal and effective networks, and also public culture of change oriented things happening in and around what we call as self culture. Because of the affordability of data plans, we see the introduction of regional language services by major local social media companies in the last decades have facilitated what could only tentatively be defined as democratization of participation and colloquialism. So, because of the cheaper plans, and because now the languages are multiple in which you can access services, is nothing but democratization of participation, where everyone can participate. By colloquialism, we mean a form of easy, almost playful language and visual practices. Internet meme cultures build best illustrate the playfulness of political discussions. So, as I explained earlier, how memes are so important and how it has been taken up in studies to understand the political discussions in and around it. It also refers to forms of circulation through online self work. So, people initiate and they say that I will do this work, and therefore they uh, use it as a colloquium and circulate. Further, we see practices have posed new challenges, if not eroded. So, these practices of circulating the memes uh, have posed new challenges, but it has not still been eroded. We see documenting new protests around linguistic nationalism in Tamil Nadu, which is again coming back, which we had already discussed when the province of Madras was formed, and after, especially when the syndicate of the South and Mrs. Gandhi kind of broke, they were pushing for Tamil speaking state. And again, when we are talking about in uh, through Cody, who notes that the rise of digitally enabled millennials as a political generation that asserts its independent voice. So, we see the rise of digitally enabled millennials. For instance, in the Marina Beach occupation, a major agitation that drew nationwide attention, educated youth organized public demonstrations largely through social media to demand the right to continue the annual bull wrestling sport event famously associated with the region. So, though it is very regional, but we see its integration through digital media happening. In these spectacular events, of public demonstration, there are agitators and actively resisting attempts by establishment parties to join the rally claim a representative function. So, it acts as an opportunity for establishment and parties to join them and stand with them as a representative. Thakur later on notices a similar trend in that Dalit mobilization. We discussed Thakur, how he has talked about Dalit mobilization. When we see that the young online Dalit activists feel they are no longer dependent on non-Dalit leaders and the intelligentsia to express their political views. So, earlier they needed a support of non-Dalit leaders as well, but now they are of the idea, or they now know that they actually do not need them anymore. Although Dalit leadership continues to be prominent feature of resistance and political organizations, one such party being BSP in the UP. Now, Thakur illustrates this by documenting the protests that erupted against the tragic suicide of Rohit Vemula, Dalit student leader in the University of Hyderabad, and how it became so effective that it was carried out in other universities throughout India. And this happened because of the digital media. Comparing online mobilization with older forms of political movements, Cody suggests many of the political challenges to existing structures fueled by newer media forms appear as shorter term events. So, he says that the earlier many of the political challenges that existing structure fueled by newer media forms are shorter time events. They do not have a long life. It has a very short life and it comes to end in a very short span of time. Contrasted by fluctuating temporality, networks, digital actions, we see that nonetheless share the potential of obliterating customary limitations of here and now. And then further we see, although pre-digital media have also had the capacity to circulate beyond national and local boundaries, the speed of user-driven nature of digital circuits mark a significant shift. And how these online mobilizations have led to the scale shifting, which we just discussed a bit before, and allowing actors to connect local issues with global politics. So, for example, climate change has become a very global politics or a problem of global problem. How the climate activists have been performing, though they might be very local and be protesting in a very localized way, but it is reaching to the people everywhere. Next, we have the hashtag movements, the hashtag Dalit Lives Matter, the hashtag Black Lives Matter. How, in an attempt to articulate a global subaltern project, it got connected to so many people across. This echoes similar effort to forge networks of hope. So, these hashtags and these communities are nothing but the networks of hope. And there comes other transnational activism by NGOs, networking in India and also sometimes outside, who also bring in these networks in order to mobilize the campaigns, and this is how it gets sustained over decades. What is hashtag activism in India? And where in which sites or digital spaces do we often see this hashtag activism, or does it even work? These are the questions which are related to when we see these hashtag activisms. Now, in India, the feminist activism on social media, notably Twitter or the other power hashtags, came into its own after the horrific Delhi rape. So, we see where this hashtag of female activism or feminist activism started. And the hashtags were like hashtag Nirbhaya, hashtag Damini, where people joined and poured their angst through these hashtags. In the year spanning 2015 to the beginning of 2017, hashtags in this eras of women's issues saw growth. For example, hashtag board the bus campaign, and then hashtag safe city campaign used YouTube videos to document the treatment of women in public spaces. By November 2015, when the Sabrimala temple issue or incident happened, banning of menstruating women, 20-old year Nikita Azad started this campaign, which was called hashtag happy to bleed, an initiative against sexism campaign. The BBC in India reported since its launch, Happy to Bleed has received a lot of responses, especially from young urban Indian women. In April 2017, when sanitary pads were categorized as a luxury commodity, like putting a 14% tax on it, another activism generated, calling it hashtag Lahu Ka Lagan, tax of menstruation, and the government had to replead the tax. So, through activism, through hashtags, we see many at times the government has to intervene, and they have to also take back these laws or policies that they build around it. Same thing happened with the farmer activism, farmer protest in a way. It was not, it it had marked a very huge digital presence as well. And then in the end, after the first farmers protest, the government had to take back the policies. Others which came in along with these were the Let There Be Clamor Noise from Jadavpur University and Pinjra Tod, July 2015. Unlike hashtag Lahu Ka Lagan, hashtag feminism in India has not always achieved its goal. Safe City, hashtag Safe City has more than 6,000 recorded testimonials of harassment, as the Holabak hashtag records. Instances of such aggravation are only increasing, but nothing is happening. Azad's Happy to Bleed ensured conversation about menstruation, which actually started in the public sphere, if not anything more. Hashtag activism is on the rise, but gender stereotyping plays out with impunity even in the digital spaces. Haldar and Jaishankar have shown their seminal work on cyber crimes and women, but the presence of women in social media is viewed as dark threat to notion of masculinity, which encourage women to live up to unrealistic demands of demureness and chastity. So, men often want women to be chaste, as also docile, very simple, and who should not open their mouth in front of anyone. But even then, we see that things have not changed in the digital spaces, or digital spaces has not been successful in changing the predicament of women. The online spaces, with trolling that includes name calling, sexual slurs, public shaming, algorithms like the kind used on social media platforms themselves can be sexist as a result of gender bias implanted in the language data sets. So, what eye-opening thing we see, that it is also the problem with the algorithm, that the kind of words that they've used in the language datasets which pop up with the algorithm. Besides participation in online activism, intense digital labor that can be both informational and as well as emotional could be used. Further, we see notions of digital labor in feminist movements in India are extremely understudied. So, there is a dire need for the study of the digital labor in feminist movements in India especially. And Mendes further says that such activist endeavors can be mundane and time consuming with very little immediate reward, and thus often relegated to the tedium and invisibility associated with the work like child rearing and housekeeping, generally regarded as women's work and therefore unimportant. Now, Mendes before, as she talked about the digital labor in feminist movements and the how mundane it is or how time consuming it is again often relegated to the tedium of and invisibility of associated with the works like child rearing, taking care of home. So, you see how the academia is being equated to child rearing, and both in a way are looked at as demeaning. Prior studies of hashtag feminism and online activism in India have shown that careful hashtag uses reflects the policy and organizational decisions of activists. Further, scholars have shown that feminist hashtag campaigns in digitally emerging countries like India need to cover the mainstream media to garner wider support. Now, the mainstream media is not backing up these social or digital media spaces, and therefore it is not garnering that much of attention. What the mainstream media is supposed to do is back these social media trends that are happening, show them in news, and then only maybe there will be an attempt for a larger change. Research has also emphasized that Twitter in India generally comprises of the opinion of youth full tech savvy participants mirroring the elite views. So, as I mentioned earlier, there is a strain of people coming from academia or also intellect or as it has been mentioned, youthful tech savvy participants only in Twitter. So, how is it mirroring the views of whole of India? It is just the mirroring the views of the elites. So, therefore, it might not make much of a change if we come with these hashtags on Twitter. While social media has made it technologically easy for women to participate, hashtag feminism here shows only a certain type of woman can and does in fact participate, thus strengthening the idea of feminism in India, representing a site of inspirational contradiction. There is a lot of inspiration, but it is contradictory because many women are not participating. Where women's rights are center stage, but also where the illiterate and the poor women's visibility has always been a matter of negotiation with the economically stronger classes. So, what about the representation of these women? What about the voices of the poor women whose visibility in these matters are shadowed by few women who belong to the stronger classes? The harbinger of Me Too movement in India was a list of alleged sexual predators in Indian academia. So, we see which was collected by young law student Raya Sarkar in 2017. Sarkar's list was criticized by influential older feminists who stated that this was akin to a witch hunt. Further, we see that scholars have shown that in the face of such backlash and resistance from established feminists, youth and feminist movements in India have strengthened themselves through potential supporters and members to become more politically mature and nuanced. And that again brings us back to the two phases of this digital activism, where there is backlash and resistance from established feminists and youth and feminist movements in India regarding the hashtag Me Too movement. Violence in multi-hybrid millennial India, we see that these TV channels and news channels in a way contribute to the violence, where India is situated as a multi-hybrid millennial India. During 2019 election, political parties built WhatsApp networks based on older face-to-face community networks for campaigning, content distribution. Now, when we talk about bringing in using the older techniques to implement in the newer phase of what we call as social networking, Coady approaches this as heterogeneous time, where they are bringing in the old and the new and mixing it and calling it heterogeneous in nature. Further, Coady illustrates the digital space's fear in the southern states of Tamil Nadu as marked by the rise of caste-based politics, where such forms of collective political identity was largely subsumed under the broader non-Brahminical politics of Tamil nationalism and the cinematic populism. So, Coady is discussing how the politics, the caste and cinematic populism is getting integrated, and how at some point may function differently, but when it comes to vote bank, it gets assimilated. There is a new form of public hate as well arising from these kind of movements. Basically, what we see in these new forms of public hate coming from the other communities, or if it is gender based, it is coming from the other gender. Now, there is something called vigilante action, similar to vigilante mob, is targeted against what right-wing attackers describe as love jihad. So, what happens is that they think or they find it as a conspiracy theory of convincing Muslim men who are thinking that Hindu women are very gullible, and therefore asking them to get married and along with some sort of submission, which they term as love jihad, as a very violent expression of the broader politics of regulating female sexuality. It is a core element of online Hindu nationalism, manifesting variously as shaming and abuse. Moving on to enduring hierarchies and the newness of digital media, we see two conflicting phases of digital politics in contemporary India, emphasizing the networked political action is neither distinctly inclusive or not straightforward process of direct participation that diminishes the role of traditional intermediaries. So, it is talking about the two conflicting phases of digital politics in contemporary India, and emphasizing on the political action, which is neither distinctively inclusive nor straightforward. Although we also see that this network politics has enabled internet media to have created greater access to public discourse for ordinary publics. Now, because of the availability of or the exposure of the networked politics, which is enabling internet media to have greater discourses amongst ordinary people, the dynamics of millennial India highlight the nature of enduring hierarchies in the age of digitalization. And we also see rapidly changing digital media platforms which have placed a premium on acquiring the know-how of using different networking platforms, apps and data packages. So, it is somewhere transforming or bringing in something very similar to subscription based. There is an emerging hierarchy among internet users. What is this emerging hierarchy? In terms of quality of internet, knowledge of search strategies, quality of broadband and mobile connections. So, there we can see a digital divide again, where one is the hierarchy and the other one is the uh, people who are not using better broadband or who have limited amount of data pack. So that hierarchy is now emerging. These concepts like protest collectivity, for instance, argue that digital social media have led to open structures of organizing protests. So now we see that what they call as protest collectivity, for instance, they are bringing in the discourse of digital social media, which have given an arena to organize protests and also to structure it.